Everybody is well. Hope you guys are doing well. So yes, the last day of March live stream, and I'm sporting my Indaba Africa, my tan Indaba Africa shirt. I wish Chris White would get out of YouTube jail. I think it's a damn shame how YouTube is doing him. That's my personal opinion, and I have a right to stick by that. So I'm going to post that I am streaming at the moment, and hope you guys are doing well, and happy March 31st to everybody. We're going to be moving into April tomorrow, and hopefully April will be a good month for everybody, but the ANC is not, is already after a bad start on that, and it's not even April, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So just hang on one second. I'm going to get this posted to some Telegram groups out there, and so just hang on one second and get this posted. So just hang on one second, and I will get this posted. And hope you guys are doing well. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the link and post it to the Telegram groups right here. And just hang on one second on that one. Hold on one second. Streaming now. Hang on one second. All right. Okay. All right. Here is what I'm going to talk about with the ANC. Okay. The ANC is, okay, right now they have banned alcohol sales in retail shops on Easter weekend. Okay, but here's the thing. You can still get alcohol in the restaurants, Evening Rebellious Ruth. You can still get alcohol in the restaurants and in the bars. Okay, even before I was vaccinated. Okay, if you put on a mask and you stay in a retail shop just under 30 minutes, you should be fine. The more dangerous times for the COVID-19 is when you're not wearing a mask and when you're in a restaurant or in a bar for a couple of hours. And alcohol can still be served in bars as well during that time. And the restaurants and the bars don't have to close till 11 p.m. So this is an ineffective alcohol policy that's going to take place on Easter weekend. And Rebecca says, lovely t-shirt, thanks. And I'm wearing this in support of Chris Wyatt. It is a damn shame how YouTube is doing Chris Wyatt and treating him, and I'm giving my support behind Chris Wyatt in this situation. I hope this doesn't clash with my YouTube account, because YouTube has been good to me. I've not had any issues with YouTube, but I have now 1,010 subscribers. According to YouTube, I'm at 1.01 subscribers, so I have 1,010 subscribers at least. So, like I said, I've not had any issues with YouTube, but I have a smaller subscriber base than Chris Wyatt, so that may be the reason. But I think YouTube's doing Chris Wyatt wrong. So yeah, Rebellious Ruth, you're right. ANC is cancer, and they basically are. The ANC banning alcohol sales in retail shops, but then allowing alcohol to flourish in restaurants and bars is not going to contain the COVID-19 any. Amy Justine LaRue says, hi, Amy, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. And Rebellious Ruth, thank you as well for tuning in. If I missed anybody, I apologize. So this is what's going on. And look, South Africa is not going to flourish until the ANC gets unelected. And, you know, a lot of people complain about the ANC, but outside the Western Cape pretty much, and parts of KZN, and my subscriber base typically doesn't vote for them, but people complain about them, and then they keep re-electing them, and nothing changes. Well, if people are sick and tired of the way things are run, they've got to give a new political party a shot. Now, if they give the EFF a shot, which I doubt they will, it's going to be worse than it already is. But that is what's transpiring with the ANC. And the ANC's cozy relationship with China has not helped South Africa. And let me tell you what China is doing to the Philippines at the moment. There's this reef in disputed territory called the Spratly Islands, but the United Nations ruled that both the Spratly Islands and the Scarborough Shoal belong to the Philippines and is sovereign Philippine territory. The Philippines took both of those cases to the UN court, and the UN court awarded arbitration to the Philippines. Well, the Chinese Coast Guard has been in the Scarborough Shoal since 2020, but the Philippines sorry, not the Scarborough Shoal, the Spratly Islands. And the Philippines are tired of it. The Philippines Secretary Delfin Lorenzana Delfin Lorenzana ordered his Air Force and their fighters to fly over the Chinese vessels and to scare the Chinese Navy and the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese fishermen. Well, I don't blame Delfin Lorenzana and the Philippines for doing that. That is sovereign Filipino territory. And in a rare moment, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who normally doesn't stand up to China, but he did in this case, he told China, he said, in 2016, the United Nations ruled that the Spratly Islands are sovereign Philippine territory. And China Uncensored just recently did a video on that situation, and they had not visited the Spratly Islands, but they had visited disputed territory called the Scarborough Shoal, and they were allowed to go to the reefs in the Scarborough Shoal, but not many Filipino fishermen have been. But typically, Filipino fishermen are getting rammed by boats from the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese Navy, and they're fishing in sovereign Filipino waters, according to the United Nations. But the Chinese Navy is punishing Filipino fishermen for fishing in Philippines waters. And this is a country that the African National Congress, aka the ANC, has a cozy relationship with, China. And they have a good relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. And the investments that China had brought into South Africa has not benefited South Africa at all. So nothing is going to change for South Africa until the ANC gets unelected. And what I think has to happen, I personally think, is that the Democratic Alliance and the Inkatha Freedom Party and the African Christian Democratic Party have to go into coalition with one another. I don't know if they'll accept the FF Plus in their coalition, but I also think the FF Plus does a disservice to South Africa because they don't have enough support base to be a major political party, but they do take away enough votes from the Democratic Alliance and from the Inkatha Freedom Party and other moderate parties where the moderate parties don't get majority votes. And I firmly believe that, I don't know if the FF Plus will be allowed in that situation to join that coalition, but I don't think it would be an effective coalition if that happened. That's my personal opinion, and that's what I firmly believe. Now, also in Namibia, now this is a sad piece of news, but it must be reported. Somebody had a back alley abortion, and it was a C-section, partial birth abortion. The fetus was about 7 months old in the third trimester. Well, a discarded fetus in a plastic bag was found in Walvis Bay in Namibia. The authorities are investigating the case to determine who would have done such a heinous act. But that was the latest according to the Namibian. So that I hope they find the perpetrator who did that back alley abortion and who just discarded the fetus. Who discarded the fetus like that. Trust me, the iPad didn't break. It's fine. All right. Well, so that's the news right there with what's going on in South Africa and what's going on in Namibia. That's what I could find on the with all the news sources. And also during this ridiculous ANC lockdown, you can't go fishing. Fishing is outdoors. The COVID-19 flourishes indoors. If you go fishing by yourself or if you go with somebody and you socially distance at 6 feet, fishing is a safe thing to do during the COVID-19. And they ban fishing, they ban a lot of canoeing and rafting. If you go canoeing and have a mask on, or you will be fine. Or you can go canoeing by yourself, and that's not a risk, particularly if you're not COVID-19 positive. And that is just a ridiculous thing that the African National Congress, aka the ANC, is doing in terms of this lockdown. Now, more on the Meghan Markle saga. This has just dominated American news and everything else. Well, her and Prince Harry claim they were married legally 3 days before the royal wedding. But under British law, you have to be married in an official venue, in an official place that's designated by the Church of England as well as the UK government. Also, a ceremony that is performed by an Archbishop of Canterbury or a Church of England priest, you have to have 2 witnesses. So while the Archbishop of Canterbury did go to their home in England and let them exchange vows privately, that was not an official marriage. The Archbishop of Canterbury said he was there. He performed the ceremony, but 2 witnesses were not there, number one. 2 witnesses weren't there. And number 2, it was not in an official place designated by the Church of England or the British government. So it was not a legal wedding. So this just shows you that that those two people are just suckers for attention. They're trying to say they were right when they were just honestly whiny, spoiled brats. They haven't proven any accusation of racism that was experienced when they were living in England. It's just asinine what they're doing and what they're going through. And I love my country and I love what my country stands for, but it's just sad that about 70% of Americans support Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. That's just a sad situation. And I normally thought Piers Morgan was very woke, and I didn't agree with him a lot. But Piers Morgan, in terms of his Meghan Markle bashing, is, I think he's right on. I think he's 100% correct on a lot of this. And I think it's just wrong for them to be trashing the royal family the way that they do. So I want to get your take on it. Get your take on what you guys think about the whole situation or the whole debacle. Another thing that I had researched this week, and I've been limited because I've been working on getting moved. The move from Hattiesburg, Mississippi to Brandon, Mississippi is going from May 15th. Now it's May the 8th. But one thing I was able to shortly research, back in 1980, a priest who was believed to be a closet Satan worshiper, he was a closet devil worshiper, was Father Gerald Robinson, but he had murdered and sacrificed one of his nuns to Satan. Father Gerald Robinson, he died in prison in 2014, but he wasn't convicted until 2006. After Father Gerald Robinson graduated from the seminary, he went to go on to work at a Catholic hospital in Toledo, Ohio. Well, when he got to Ohio, he ministered to the sick, he ministered to the dying. Well, one of the nuns there was his arch enemy, because she was a few years older than him, and she ran a lot of the hospital. And she was a stickler when it came to tradition, and she was very, very particular about a way a lot of things were done. And the reason I'm telling this story is because Good Friday is coming very, very close. Well, Father Gerald Robinson said a Good Friday Mass, and he cut the Mass short. Typically, Good Friday Masses are very long and very traditional and very, very specific, because the Catholic Church is very, very particular in the way they celebrate Easter. And for the record, I'm not Catholic, I'm Protestant. Well, she got angry with Father Gerald Robinson and addressed her grievances for him cutting the Mass short and not being traditional enough. And then shortly thereafter, I think it was the Monday after Easter, her body was found in the hospital, and there were several holes punctured in her, and there were symbols drawn on her, and the symbols looked like devil worship symbols. Now, with that being said, the Toledo police came and they investigated the situation, but Toledo, Ohio is a very, very strong Catholic city in the United States. And the chief of police of Toledo at the time was a very devout Catholic. And the chief the detective that was in charge of interrogating Father Gerald Robinson admitted he didn't ask him tough enough questions, and he let Father Gerald Robinson go when he shouldn't have. So years down the road, back in 2005, 2006, Father Gerald Robinson was arrested and he was brought to trial, and he was convicted on the murder of this nun. Now, with that being said, I have mixed emotions about this, because the reason that the police admitted they messed up the investigation. They admitted their mistakes. They admitted that they did a lot of things wrong. And the reason, though, it was brought to light again was because there were some anonymous women that said that Father Gerald Robinson had molested them years before the murder. And some, I think, said years after the murder. But all this was circumstantial. No DNA was proven on this. So Father Gerald Robinson was brought to trial, and he was convicted. And the reason but there was no DNA evidence found in his home or on the crime scene that belonged to Father Gerald Robinson. Now, I believe he did it because a lot of people that went to seminary with Father Gerald Robinson were creeped out by him. They also said they believed he was a closet sociopath. I have a personal friend that's a Catholic priest as well, and we've discussed this case, and he believes Father Gerald Robinson did that as well. I suspect he was guilty, but if you look at the American Constitution, when it says proof beyond reasonable doubt, the police found a letter opener, and the letter opener matched a lot of the holes that was in the nun. And it fit it perfectly, but there was also no DNA evidence. None of her blood was on that letter opener as well. Now, he could have wore gloves. He could have wiped off the blood, because from the time the murder took place to the time he was tried and convicted, it was 26 years. But like I said, I suspect he was guilty. But in terms of that, even though he was convicted, the Catholic Church didn't excommunicate him from the church, and when he died, he was given a priest's funeral. While I may disagree with that, I can understand why it happened, because all the evidence in this case was circumstantial, and it wasn't proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, like I said, I tend to think he was guilty, but at the same time, there wasn't a lot of DNA evidence, so I don't really know if the jury should have been able to convict somebody on that when you look at the United States Constitution. So that's the case that I'd been researching. It was a murder that took place in Toledo, Ohio, at a Catholic hospital when Father Gerald Robinson murdered a Catholic nun that he worked with. And the dispute that more than likely caused him to kill her. Now, there had been proof that there had been a lot of suspect that he was a closet sociopath and a closet Satan worshiper, but she really got on his nerves the way she questioned everything he did and the way she was a stickler when it came to tradition. So that's the case, and that's the form of American history that I wanted to discuss with you guys today, or the form of an American true crime story. And it's not just the Catholic Church. I mean, we all have individual acts of crooked clergy. One that I've researched, that a true crime writer in America called Catherine Casey researched this case in Texas. Matt Baker murdered his wife, Carrie Baker. Matt Baker was a pastor in Waco, Texas, and he murdered his wife, Carrie Baker, and he staged it, making it look like it was a suicide. He was a Protestant minister in a Baptist church, and he hardly ever was a pastor at a church for longer than 2 years. Typically, he would go from one small Baptist church to another. The wife never questioned why that happened. The wife was always loyal to him. But throughout even his college days when he was in seminary, this one woman said while he was in college or seminary, he raped her. That he had hit on inappropriately, made inappropriate advances towards women in the congregation, pretty much every church that he pastored at. And what really was the testimony that put him away was Vanessa Bulls, who was a member of the church that Matt Baker was a pastor of. She claimed she had an affair with Matt Baker, and she claimed that Matt wanted to kill his wife so he could be with her. And there was phone conversations and text messages that proved that, and that put Matt Baker away for a very, I think he got life in prison. I'm not sure if he got the death penalty or not, but I believe that he got life in prison. I think it's Texas. I think he did get the death penalty. But yeah, so the crooked minister situation that I want to talk to you about was Father Gerald Robinson in Ohio, but then also a Protestant minister, Matt Baker in Waco, Texas. So those are the two true crime cases that are researched for this live stream. Okay, talk about what's going on in Mozambique right now. It is a mess in Mozambique right now. I highly recommend that you guys do not travel to Mozambique right now. Okay, right now, particularly in northern Mozambique, out in the Cabo Delgado province in the city of Palma, ISIS-linked group called Al-Shabaab is just wreaking havoc on in that area. And a South African construction worker named Adrian Nail was killed recently in Mozambique. Due to COVID and due to the economic situation in South Africa. He lost his job in South Africa. He couldn't find work in South Africa. So that's why he moved his family to Mozambique. But due to ISIS attacking the Palma, Cabo Delgado area, Adrian Nail got killed in Mozambique at the hands of Al-Shabaab. and many bodies have been beheaded on the streets in Mozambique. Right now, it is, and the French oil giant Total messed up. They are running a pipeline out there, but they declared the area secure, and they said it was okay to resume operations out there. Well, it's not safe. I mean, right now, recently, Adrian Nail was trying to help evacuate people from the hotel, and he was killed because of it. He was killed because of it. He did a brave thing, did an incredibly brave thing, but he paid with his life in that situation. So I highly recommend that you guys don't go to Mozambique right now. It's just a mess right there, and it's becoming war-torn. Since the most recent fighting out in the Palma Cabo Delgado area, at least 5,000 people have been displaced. That's just the ones that we know about. At least 5,000 people have been displaced in the Cabo Delgado Palma region recently. Now, overall, more than 700,000 people have been displaced due to the fighting between the Mozambican military forces and the ISIS-linked group Al-Shabaab. That's what's going on in Mozambique at the moment. So that's recently on the news. Now, this is a sad situation I firmly believe you go woke, you go broke. And unfortunately, the woke culture is dominating the United States right now. Now, the Biden administration's done some good things. Now, they did some good things. They have sided with the Philippines and the Philippine-Chinese dispute in the Spratly Islands. The U.S. has backed the Philippines, in that situation. But you go woke, you go broke. Recently, the Special Operations Unit has appointed a diversity officer. And this diversity officer was the same guy who compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler, which is a wrong, incorrect comparison, by the way. But this diversity officer, his last name's Torres, is in charge of diversity in the Special Operations Group. The Special Operations Group are the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets, the Delta Force, badasses. And the U.S. military is becoming woke in this situation. And it's freedom of speech in this situation. I'm an avid supporter of the U.S. military. I typically don't criticize them. I highly support them even still. But Tucker Carlson went on to say that the U.S. military is becoming feminized. It's becoming too politically correct. Well, the Pentagon recently went after Tucker Carlson in that situation. And that is Tucker Carlson's First Amendment freedom of speech right to do that. The military going after private citizens speaking their minds and not posing threats to them is something that fascist and communist countries do. And props to Sky News in Australia for reporting this situation. And that's just a sick, sadistic situation with what has happened with the U.S. military becoming woke. Disney has become woke, and it has just cost them with profits and with everything else. Since Disney has become woke, Disney Plus has lost subscribers. The Disney's stock has fallen $12 since Disney has become woke. And I believe the saying, and it's a saying that I didn't invent, but I believe in the saying, you go woke, you go broke. I think this woke culture is just getting out of control. And I just really think we don't have that. It is just, it's just an unnecessary and horrible situation. As I pointed out, anti-Asian crimes are a problem in the U.S., but typically the perpetrator of an anti-Asian crime is a black male or Hispanic male. Not always, but typically a black male or a Hispanic male is the perpetrator in the anti-Asian crimes. Now, recently out in Seattle, Washington, a Black Lives Matter supporter who was either black or biracial rolled his window down at an Asian lady and said, effing Asian, effing Chinese, effing, just a lot of racial slurs, go back to China, all these other things. And this guy had been an avid Black Lives Matter supporter and an avid leftist and very anti-Trump on a lot of his Twitter and a lot of his Facebook. But the vast majority of the media sources didn't even report that incident. So you really just can't trust the media this day and age. Now, the media did report the situations in New York with the black male harassing a an Asian going to protest against the anti-Asian crimes, where he ripped up her protest sign and threw it in the trash. And then when she asked him, "Sir, why did you do that?" he punched her in the stomach. They arrested the guy, and the police arrested the guy. They're going to charge him with a hate crime. The media reported that, so I have to give the media a thumbs up on that. The media also reported a 38-year-old man on the other side of New York City, a guy named Elias Guerrero, hit an Asian woman with a pipe. Fortunately, the woman survived. She didn't sustain serious injuries, but they arrested Elias Guerrero, and they're going to charge him with a hate crime as well. But it typically had not been like that with the media. Typically, they tried to they would report anti-Asian crimes, but they wouldn't release the name or the pictures unless it involved Caucasian male. Now, the situation is slowly but steadily changing, which is good news for that. So that is, and also in Washington D.C. there was this Pakistani American named Mohammed Anwar, not a terrorist. He came from Pakistan to the United States to give him and his family a better life than what they had in Pakistan. They were poor in Pakistan. He was trying to give his family a good life, so he took a job, whatever job he could find. He ended up driving a taxi. Well, these two African-American teenage girls got into his car, and he was an Uber driver. Sorry, not a taxi driver, an Uber driver. They got into his car, and they robbed him of his possessions, and he lost control of the vehicle, and it killed him. And yeah, Mohammed Anwar. And the media is very rarely reporting the situation. CNN called that situation an accident. No, these two teenage girls knew what they were doing. They were trying to rob him. They were trying to take his cash, his cell phone, and all his other possessions. And they said racial slurs, but the media is not reporting this situation very much. CNN reported a little bit, but they called the situation an accident. Now, what happened in Minnesota with George Floyd, which really sparked the Black Lives Matter protest in the United States, it had been around in the U.S. for a while, but it was kind of dying down until the George Floyd situation. And Derek Chauvin, the officer that was in charge of arresting George Floyd and that had George Floyd in that chokehold, is going on trial. And what he did to George Floyd was disgraceful. I'm not saying that, but the Minneapolis Police Department, I firmly believe, needs to compensate George Floyd's family, because the chokehold that Derek Chauvin had on George Floyd, it was legal procedure. But that chokehold is dangerous. It's got a main artery right here. It's a dangerous chokehold, and it should never been administered. But it is legal procedure that they were taught at the police academy. So I firmly believe that, if you look at the legal standpoint, I don't know if Derek Chauvin should be charged with manslaughter or murder, because he was doing everything by the book and George Floyd died. Now, with that being said, the medical examiner examined George Floyd and said that the chokehold didn't have anything to do with him, the chokehold had nothing to do with his death. He was already so high as a kite on fentanyl that he was going to be dead anyway, and that the chokehold didn't really have anything to do with his death. The medical examiner said that, and that's the medical examiner's testimony in court. If Derek Chauvin gets acquitted, though, there are going to be all kinds of riots in the streets, and it should have never been legal procedure in the first place, which is why I believe that the city of Minneapolis and the police department need to compensate George Floyd's family members for the rest of their lives. I firmly believe that. But as far as charging Derek Chauvin, they got called. George Floyd was in a store. The clerk asked him to leave. He refused to leave, just stood there, and that's when the clerk called the police. So I just really don't know what you could jail somebody for in a legal situation like that. I hated that George Floyd died. May he rest in peace. I pray that he was one of these people that got saved by Jesus, but then just slipped, so he's in heaven now. I really hope that. But I just don't know what on a legal basis what they can charge Derek Chauvin with. I'm just thinking about this logically, not emotionally. I'm thinking about this logically from a logical standpoint. That is what's transpiring. I really can't see, how you could you can't make up charges on somebody. I'm just looking at it from a very, very logical perspective. Now, Derek Chauvin did have beef with George Floyd. They were security guards together. A lot of police officers have to work security guard jobs on the side because officers get paid so low. So he was working extra security guard jobs for extra money. Now, George Floyd had been a security guard, but not a police officer. And they did not get along very well at their security guard jobs, and there was a lot of bad blood between them. As far as I know, if I'm wrong on that, I can be corrected. That's not, but that's as far as what I know on that situation. All right, so how are you guys doing? If you guys have any questions or comments, just please type in there. Oh, I did have a little bit of free time today. It wasn't much, but I had a little bit of free time today, and I have HBO Max, and I saw Kong versus Godzilla. And that is a really good movie. Now, here is my personal analysis of the Kong versus Godzilla movie. I believe it's worth a watch. I hate that you guys can't get HBO Max in South Africa, but I think you guys should be able to get HBO Max in South Africa. HBO Max is definitely worth the paying about, I think it's like $7 or $10 a month for. But Kong versus Godzilla, the special effects and the fight scenes were awesome. The acting and the storylines were a little weak, but the special effects, the cinematography, and the visual effects were outright awesome. So I firmly recommend that you guys do see Kong versus Godzilla. I wouldn't call it epic, but it was still a very, very good movie, and I recommend that you guys do see the film Kong versus Godzilla. So I was able to do that, able to watch Kong versus Godzilla, and that was an excellent movie. So I recommend, like I said, that you guys check it out and that you guys do watch Kong versus Godzilla. So, okay, latest news on what is going on in South Korea. Recently, and this is one reason, like, even though I've been vaccinated and I am going to Disney World in December, may go sooner. But even though I have been vaccinated, Disney's taking, what I have to give them credit for is they are taking a lot of precautions when it comes to helping prevent the spread of the COVID-19. But, okay, a lot of South Koreans right now, they can't travel internationally due to a lot of the COVID-19 restrictions, but a lot of them are traveling domestically. And I don't think a lockdown's an answer, but a lot of them have traveled domestically, and the vaccine is being distributed in South Korea, but it's being distributed at a very low rate. And the predominant vaccine that's being distributed in South Korea is the AstraZeneca vaccine, and I firmly believe that Pfizer is more effective, and even Johnson & Johnson in this case, and also Moderna. Well, South Korea may be bringing in Johnson & Johnson soon, but the majority, about 80% of their cases of where people have been vaccinated have been the AstraZeneca. Also, South Korea is a nation of 50 million people, and only less than 2% of their population has been vaccinated. Just a little over 1%. And because of there was stories of linking the AstraZeneca vaccine to blood clots, but that report was unfounded, that a lot of those people would have gotten blood clots anyway, regardless if they got the vaccine or not. And it was only 55 out of 3 million vaccines. So the AstraZeneca vaccine is slowly being distributed back in South Korea. But people over 65 can't get the AstraZeneca vaccine because of it. Right now, as a precaution, they can only get the Pfizer vaccine, people over 65. But right now, South Korea's quantity of the Pfizer vaccine is very, very limited. So that's another crisis that they're running into. So less than 2% of the population has been vaccinated, but a lot of people are traveling during the spring in South Korea. It's springtime, a lot of people are traveling within the country domestically. Well, Tuesday, South Korea had over 500 cases of the COVID-19. And that is the first time they've had over 500 cases in almost a year. But this last week for them has also been rough. It's been 400 people have been, they've had over 400 cases a day for about 6 days straight. Now, I believe Tuesday, it was slightly under 400, but last Tuesday. Before last Tuesday, they had over 400 cases for about 6 straight days. 6 to 8 straight days. And then yesterday they had over 500 cases. So it is just a mess right now with the COVID-19 in South Korea, and the vaccine is being distributed, but it's being distributed at a very, very slow rate for the reasons that I discussed with you guys. So right now, the COVID-19 is becoming a problem in South Korea, and it is becoming a problem in India. It's a huge problem in India right now, particularly in the state of Maharashtra, which houses Mumbai, which is the city of Mumbai is in the state of Maharashtra. And COVID-19 is just rampant right now in the state of Maharashtra and the city of Mumbai. So the COVID-19 is a lot better where I am in Mississippi. We're about to go under 100 new cases a day on average, because the vaccine is available to any Mississippian who is 16 or older. So right now, the biggest thing right now in Mississippi is that a lot of people are skeptical of the vaccine, which I firmly believe they shouldn't be, as I've discussed. And the biggest thing now is that so many people are refusing to get the vaccine, and they're not going to jail, and they're not having to pay a fine for getting the vaccine. That has not happened in this state. I also didn't have to pay anything to get the vaccine. The state of Mississippi paid for it. So no, nobody is getting arrested or going to jail because they refuse to get the vaccine. If that ever happened, we would have a lot more people in jail, number one. Number two, we would have 0 cases of the COVID-19 per day if that happened, which I don't believe people should have to be forced to get a vaccine against their will. That's a different story. I don't support something like that. This was a calculated decision, a personal decision that I made, and I evaluated all the pros and all the cons. The only other state besides Mississippi that has made vaccines available for everybody 16 and older is the state of Alaska. And I've discussed that in this situation. The state of Alaska has done a good job with their vaccines, and one hospital nurse had a bad allergic reaction to the vaccine, but she was in a hospital when she got the vaccine in Alaska. They took her to the emergency room, to the intensive care unit. They stuck an IV in her hand, and they pumped her full of antihistamines. So within 2 to 3 days, she was released, and she was better. And she said she does not regret getting the vaccine. This is her testimony, not mine. She says, I don't regret getting the vaccine. I believe it protects me against the COVID-19. I just had an unfortunate allergic reaction, but the hospital took care of me. They pumped me full of antihistamines, and now that I'm fine. And that is her testimony, not mine. That is, so like I said, I thoroughly researched the whole situation, and I thoroughly researched the entire thing before I made my personal decision in that situation. And no, I've not had allergic reactions. It's been 2 months since I've had it. I'm not dead. I'm still alive. This is not the ghost of Brett Sessoms that's talking to you guys. This is the actual Brett Sessoms. And if you don't want to get the vaccine, you don't believe in the vaccine, fine. That's your personal opinion. It's your personal decision. And I don't think you guys should go to jail, and I don't think you guys should be arrested because you refuse to get the vaccine. And sometimes in South Africa, that situation does kind of scare me because freedom of speech is not as protected under the South African Constitution as it is under the U.S. Constitution. No offense, but that's just the reality. I mean, it's just, we have freedom of speech, which is the First Amendment in our Constitution, and it's called the Bill of Rights. So, I mean, we don't have that. The government has a lot more power in South African day-to-day lives than it does in terms of America. That is true. And no, I really don't believe in the deep state. I'm not a conspiracy theorist in terms of that. Now, with that being said, the way Twitter had banned Trump, and Twitter's a private company, they can do that. And Bernie Sanders, who is no fan of Donald Trump, he said that Twitter should have not banned President Trump. He said that he's worried if that keeps up, that the tech companies are going to rule America. And I don't think they're doing it right now. I mean, Twitter is a private company, and they can allow who they want on there and who they don't. But with that being said, if Twitter goes down that road, I mean, I think years down the road, we may see the tech companies rule this country. But at the moment, no. Like I said, I don't believe in the deep state. I don't believe in anything like that. Because even with President Obama, okay, let me explain this. Okay, Dinesh D'Souza made a really good anti-Obama film called Obama's America in 2012. And I watched the film. It's a really good film, and it's documented. Everything he says in there has been proven. No errors, no slander, no nothing. Well, Obama really didn't like the movie. I mean, obviously. But Obama didn't arrest Dinesh D'Souza on trumped-up charges. Now, the only thing that did happen, okay, here's the thing. Dinesh D'Souza violated the campaign finance law. A friend of his was running for U.S. Senator in New York City, in New York State, where Dinesh resided, where he lived. And he gave the person too much money. Now, that's a violation of campaign finance law. Now, before this happened to D'Souza, though, nobody had even been indicted on this charge, much less arrested. It was on the books, but it didn't get enforced. It was what one may call a blue law. But Dinesh did make a mistake. But that is also why President Trump pardoned Dinesh D'Souza, because they did go after Dinesh D'Souza. Yes, they went after him. But Dinesh D'Souza did violate a law, even though the law never got enforced until Dinesh D'Souza was the one who committed it. So that's another reason I don't believe in the deep state. There were a lot of anti-Obama protests that were called Tea Party protests that happened all throughout the Obama years, and the Tea Party protesters didn't get arrested. So that's another reason I don't believe in the whole deep state situation, because of examples like that. I mean, I just don't believe in the whole deep state situation because of the examples that I just told you guys. So yeah. All right, well, looks like I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Much appreciated to everybody who's tuned in. I know it's late at night in South Africa right now, and I know Joe Emilio at one point was streaming, so a lot of you guys probably were over there. So thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm head on out. So again, thank you guys so much. I don't know when I'm gonna be able to stream again, because like I said, I've been so busy with all these other things. But thank you guys very much, and hope everybody's doing well. Take care. And Vitsarko, thanks. Thank you. Thanks for this thumbs up. Hope everybody's doing well. Take care. God bless, and bye bye.